I think drum and bass has some pretty good moral codes to kind of to live by, kind of thing. It's is it perfect? No. Is any scene perfect? Of course it isn't. Is it trying to be better? 100%. My whole thing is like, hey man, listen to this. You have to fucking hear this tune. I'm fascinated by today. I love the past, but tomorrow is like super interesting because it's not written. You know what I mean?
One more thing.
Hello and welcome to a brand new podcast series from One More Thing, a platform that celebrates and champions the freshest, finest and most formative beats-based electronic music from the deepest of its history to the most exciting future that awaits us. This podcast series is hosted by myself, Dave Columbo Jenkins, and is dedicated to deep interviews with dance music and DJ culture's most inspiring, pioneering and innovative protagonists. We kick off with drum and bass royalty, none other than Doc Scott. This man has been part of the UK rave culture since the very beginning. He cut his teeth as a resident at the legendary Amnesia House in Eclipse in Coventry, and he played a key role in the development of drum and bass from the very, very beginning through his role at Reinforced Records, Goldie's Metalheads, and his own label, 31 Records, an imprint that has introduced the world to many, many great talents across the generations and the eras and the flavours. A b-boy at heart and a man who refuses to compromise, he speaks at length to One More Thing for this inaugural podcast as we spend an hour and a half talking about everything from Detroit techno to mental health to the importance of taking risks and his faith in humanity. Thanks to anyone who has tuned into this. If you like what you hear, please visit one-more-thing.co.uk and please support the platform via Patreon if you can. In the meantime, enjoy. Time for some proper drum and bass history.
One more thing.
Scott, thank you. Thank you for joining me and being up for the very first One More Thing podcast. How are you, man?
I'm good though, thank you.
Brilliant, man. I'm going to start with a quote. There's so many different ways that I could start this conversation and so many things I want to talk to you about. But I found a quote in the depths of the internet of yours, and I'm going to read it to you because I think it's brilliant. I think it sums up you. I think it sums up drum and bass. It sums up a lot of things. So I'm going to read it to you now. I'm a DJ who plays for tomorrow. Fuck today. If you play for today, you're yesterday by the time you finished your set. You're a disc jockey. Fuck disc jockeys. I'm a DJ. Tomorrow's beats are always the most interesting. I love that, man. I love that.
That's an old one as well, right? I think. It's quite an old one. I mean, I've always, for as far as I can remember, apart from like maybe the first year or two of playing out, like 89 night, because it was just about the party and having a good time and, making people happy. And I'm still about that. But I think probably when I first saw Derek May in 1990, and, I saw this guy come over who was kind of a hero of mine musically. I'd never heard him DJ, heard about his DJing, never seen him DJ. And he came to Coventry, actually. Amnesia House, legendary promotion from this city, was putting on these incredible parties, and I was very, very lucky to be in the right place at the right time kind of thing. I was like 18 at the time, I think, playing alongside Fabio and Groove Rider, and Mickey Finn, Jumping Jack Frost. And then the last couple of parties they did that summer, they got a couple of international acts, DJs. One of them was Derek May, the other one was Frankie Bones. And I can remember Derek May coming, and he just played his thing. He probably bent a little bit. Like, he played a couple of like what were popular rave tracks at the time, but he pretty much played this full-on Detroit techno set. And what I remember, two things of what I remember was, one, he blew my fucking mind. Like, because I knew some of these tracks that he was playing, half of the set I didn't know. And the second thing I remember was half the people on the dance floor, and this was like a big warehouse that held about, I don't know, 3,000 people, 4,000 people maybe. half the people left because they just couldn't fucking handle it. Do you know what I mean? It was just too much. You know, we talking summer of 1990, so we're still, you know, still rave nation. You know what I mean? People are, I don't know if Sesame Street came that year, maybe the year after, but you know, there's those kind of tunes, but you know, you had Belgian techno, you had Detroit, you had UK rave sound was kind of thing, but so there's kind of a mixture, but no one, Groove Rider played pretty deep and consistent that time, but with a more of a UK European flavor, I'd probably say. But this guy fucking came and decided, he sounded like he was 25 years from the future, and I was like, holy shit. And he taught me like a really important lesson that day, which was like, if you're invited to play somewhere, especially if you're going overseas, what's the point in going there and just saying, okay, well, what are these people into? I'm just going to play that stuff to keep that crowd happy, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? He sounded like he was from the fucking future, man. I remember vividly going home after that party, after that rave, man, and I took a load of records out of my record. I didn't even have a box at the time, a crate. I was like, I can't play those anymore. You know what I mean? Like,
wow.
Yeah, it was like such a profound experience. And I've always been interested in futuristic kind of music anyway. So I just, from then on, I had this kind of mentality of not deliberate, of, you know, of playing dance music. At the end of the day, my job is to make people dance primarily. If I don't do that, I'm not doing my job, because there was always a fine line of like, you can go out there and just fucking go up your own ass, and then you go beyond the dance, man. Do you know what I mean? And then you just cater for those small minority people that are stroking their chin in the corner, and that's not what I want to do. And I've probably done that a couple of times for a little period during my career, and it's a balancing act, man. I would say nowadays I'm much more crowd friendly, because I'm just into having fun. But inside that having fun, however long I'm playing, I still want to play stuff that will hopefully fucking blow your fucking mind. A couple of things, you know what I mean? And that's always been important to me. So that quote, that mentality is what I kind of live by. And I'm just fascinated by people doing new things, new ideas, new concepts. And thankfully, drum and bass is like a fantastic medium for people to go out there and do whatever the fuck they want. Do you know what I mean? It's this, because there's never been any rules. There's no rules. One of the things I say, one, be yourself, do you. Be influenced by people, but don't think, okay, well, what's hot right now? Serum's hot right now, or DLR's hot right now. I'll just try and do that sound. No, don't do that. You know, be you for one, but
you're forever chasing people. If you're copying people, if you're always chasing somebody, if you're in your own lane, if you're doing your own thing, then you're only competing with yourself then.
Yeah, and you're never going to be better than those people anyway.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because, Caliber is Caliber, and flipping Alex Perez is Alex Perez. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so when I hear these, when I get sent a lot of music, when I hear tracks that really, really heavily influenced by one of those kind of people, it's just like, well, yeah. And they'll ask me, it's like, what do you think of that tune? I say, yeah, it's a nice tune, but why would I play that ahead of Caliber track when I've got 100 Caliber tracks? And so, you've got to be really freaking good, man, to get ahead in that queue. And that's kind of what it is. Like, there's still enough space out there to carve your own identity and do your own thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
more space than people realize, I think.
I think so. I think, the scene now is so broad. I mean, I've seen quite a few people recently kind of talk about the fact, it's 30 years old now, give or take, depending on wherever you want to pinpoint the stars, but it's generally 30 years old, which is a nice, mature time to be at as a musical form, as a scene kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, I always, a little bit, like 10, 15 years ago, I was a little bit envious of house and techno, because I knew they were like 10 years further down the road as a mature scene kind of thing. But now, drum and bass it's a mature entity, man. Do you know what I mean? And you can coexist in it wherever on the spectrum of sound. And you can, like you say, you can easily find your own. You can find your own sound. It's, it might not seem like that, man, because you've got these such dominant artists in a particular field, if you like. I see people on flyers, for example, and I don't even know who they are. That's how broad the scene is nowadays. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know where I fit in the spectrum of things, kind of thing. I just do my thing, man, and but I have my ears open to everything, because I don't like to have a closed mentality, you know what I mean? So I still listen to everything I get sent from every label, from every artist, whether it's someone super established or someone saying, hey, man, I just done my first tune. Could you have a listen? That's the fun, and you never know where something's going to come from. Do you know what I mean? You never know where the next pendulum is going to come from, for example. You know, I can remember that, you know, when that got sent to me, you know, I met those guys at a festival in New Year's Day, I think it was in 2002. And they came up to me and
was that out in Australia then?
Yeah, it was in Perth. I think it was called Origin, Fields of Origin or something.
Right, okay.
And yeah, they came up to me, man, to say, hey, man, we were going to bring a CD, because it was CDs at the time.
Yeah.
And they said, we were going to bring a CD of tunes, but we forgot to bring it with us or something. Can we get your AIM? It was AIM at the time.
Yeah.
Send you some tunes. I was like, yeah, man, please do. I did a couple more dates, got home, sitting in my studio in the first week in January, get this 2:00 in the morning. Said, oh yeah, remember us? I was, yeah, and they sent me 2 tracks, and one of them was Vault. I was sitting in the studio going, fuck. I kind of knew, because it was just so different, and it was so at the time technologically ahead. Like the sound was like superior to kind of anything that was really around. It was just different.
That was a bold move. That was a bold move when you signed that and put that out into the world.
Not really. I didn't think so.
Because it was so different. It was so different to everything, wasn't it?
But that's kind of what I enjoy doing. And sometimes, you know, you do that and it doesn't quite work. But I don't really mind, man, because I'm always of the mentality of sometimes you got to swing and miss to know what works. Yeah. I mean, why? It's the same with running a label as DJing. Sometimes I'll play some tracks and they don't work. Because sometimes, you know, but that's kind of the fun of finding where the boundaries are, and then you know, how do you know what the limits are? How do you know what a crowd will be into or not into if you don't sometimes take some risks? It'd be so easy just to play it safe from running a label or DJing, and I know for a fact, me personally, I'd just be bored out of my mind, kind of thing. I part of the enjoyment of DJing for me is seeing sometimes what you can get away with, and then seeing what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
And also seeing potential as well.
100%.
You know, when you're talking about like the Derek May, and I always think about it, something that I've spoken to Groove Rider about. We might have spoken about it in the past as well, where sometimes it's important to clear the dance floor with a track. If you can hear that potential and you think that this might sound a bit weird to you now, but trust me, in a couple of weeks' time, or in a couple of months' time, or even by the end of the night, you're going to love this. And I think like that's, you know, that's a bold move in itself. And you must have done that many times at places like Rage and things like that.
When I was really rolling with Reinforced around that era, and they were getting all these dub plates from Goldie and from 4Hero, and the combinations that they were doing, and they were doing all this weird experimental stuff. There were definitely times when I played out and half the people would leave the dance floor because it was just like, it didn't sound like anything else that was out there. I liken it to comedians, you know, comedians on stage. You know, you'll hear comedians, if you hear comedians talk, they will say, you have to bomb to kind of get to the next level. Do you know what I mean? And they'll, you know, I've heard comedians say, like, if you say you've never bombed, and then you're not doing comedy right, kind of thing. Now, I'm not saying I ever want to clear a dance floor, but I can remember, especially around that kind of time when, you know, Goldie and Mark and Digo were just doing some really fucking crazy shit. And, you know, you're talking like 92, 93, when some people just still wanted to hear kind of, you know, just straightforward ravey tunes. And these guys were taking breakbeats and bending them this way and that way and whatever. And, but that's kind of fun, man. I get off on that kind of thing, man. I don't get off on making people get off the dance floor, but I get off on knowing I've got a tune in there and I'm not quite sure about it, kind of thing. I think, well, I like it, but I don't really know. It might work, it might not. And it's kind of fun, man. And, you still get that within D&B. I still get some tunes like, I had something recently from, I can't remember the artist name off the top of my head. And it's sort of like a really weird, it's just the way the loop goes, the beats are all kind of, they sound like they're out of time and everything, but it's so fucking good, man. And I've played it out a couple of times, and it's interesting because sometimes you see people trying to dance to it and some people trying to work it out. But it's, you know, at the end of the day, it's just 3 minutes. The next tune's coming in, don't worry. I'm not going to play 30 minutes of that shit and just fucking fuck everything up. That's not my job. Like I say, my job is to make people dance. But I also think, me personally, my personal mission is also, hopefully I play something that you go home and can maybe think about and say, man, I heard this fucking tune, man. It was fucked up, man. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? that's what I want to hear when I hear somebody play. I want to hear great music, obviously, but I also want to hear something that makes me go, wow, what is this?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? What is this? Not what is this because I don't have it. What is this because it's fucking amazing, man? And I'm like, and I can't quite work out sometimes even who made it. Sometimes you hear a track, you're like, oh, this is a new DLR thing.
Yeah.
Because he has a sonic, he has a sound. And there's other times I hear something, I'm like, who's this? And, you know, I'm like, if I know the person that's playing and I'll ask them and they'll go, oh, this is a new Skeppy thing or whatever. And I'm like, really? Fuck me, man. That's not what I was thinking who it was.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Yeah.
That's fun to me. And that's tomorrow. You know what I mean? That's the tomorrow that I'm talking about. I'm always interested. I'm fascinated by today. I love the past, but tomorrow is like super interesting because it's not written. You know what I mean? Nobody knows where tomorrow is. And I think the thing that keeps drum and bass exciting to a lot of people, two things. One, it's very attractive to a certain demographic. So you always have this turnover of people, right, that get into it, whether from like 16 to 21. There's a constant turnover of people there. But it's also because the music's freaking interesting, which is why you have people in it that are our age and everything in between that are still into it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I'm into it and now I've grown out of it because it's just the same freaking thing. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the only time when drum and bass slightly stagnated was in the 2000s, when it, for me anyway, and I think for a lot of people, if you ask them, it wasn't doing that enough. There was too many people. The music was just treading water for a while. It was good music, don't get me wrong.
It was finding a new identity, I think, then, really. It had gone through that kind of first commercial or second commercial kind of wave in that way. The first one being, kind of what Goldie was doing, really, and that uncompromised commercial, like introducing it to the mainstream with absolutely no apologies at all. Mm-hmm. Then it had the first kind of big commercial explosion with Shy FX and Andy and Shimon and stuff like that in the early 2000s. And then, I mean, we've spoken about this in other interviews. I think a lot of the pioneers like yourself had run out of steam for a little while. You needed to take a little break. And people, it was still finding this identity. It hadn't reached that state of maturity that it's at now, really.
For sure.
And things have been so rapid, and I was listening back to your NHS EPs and just the difference between the first one and the second one. You can hear nascent forms of drum and bass kind of, or jungle sleeping away in the first EP, but it was still hardcore. But in part two then, especially in some of the remixes, you could hear all that space, you could hear the break beats, you could hear, and that was 92. It's exactly 30 years ago to this summer, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking to someone just recently and just saying those early days were crazy because it was like 1 year, the music was like 130 BPM. And then a year later, it was like 160 something. It was like that fast. It jumped like 30 BPMs in 12 months. It was so crazy, man. I can't think of any other musical form that evolved so quickly. Do you know what I mean? It's fascinating to see where it is today, and it makes me immensely proud to kind of see where it's at. And it's kind of I think even people that don't follow the scene or whatever know how healthy it is. At least I assume they do. You know what I mean? It's beyond healthy, man. It's the best. This last 5 years. I'm just using 5. I could say 10 years, but this last 5 years, it's the best it's ever been, man. Yep. And people go, and I know people have got a real fondness for the 90s and this one over there, but that's a lot of the time it's because like that's what they heard. That's when they got into it. Do you know what I mean? So you're always going to have a nostalgic feel for that for anything when you first get into something, right? Or the first time you go to a football match, or the first time you see a UFC event, or whatever it is. Those first ones are special, but for a different reason. The 90s were special. Obviously, I know I was there. I was immensely involved in it. But the how healthy the scene is now, and how good the music is, and the breadth of the artists, it's spread across such a spectrum. I don't give a fuck what anyone says, man. It's the best it's ever been, man. I fucking love it, man. It's brilliant. It's so good, man. I'm so I get so much joy going out there and playing this music to people around the world, and especially to non-DM. When I get the opportunities to go to, like, I was at Houghton a few weeks ago, and you're playing to like a pretty much a non-DMB audience kind of thing, and it was me, Storm, and Darren Debridge. That's the best feeling of all, man, because I've probably said this to you before. I'm so confident in this music. I know I could take it anywhere and make anybody dance to it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's fucking good, man. Good is good at the end of the day. Do you know what I mean? Even if you're not really that into it, like there might be some forms of dance music that I'm not into, but when I hear somebody playing, I'm like, okay, this is not really my thing, but this is fucking really good. This guy really knows what the fuck he's doing. I always think good music is good music at the end of the day. Fucking forget about the tempo kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's as good as it ever has been, if not the best it's ever been.
I think so too. And I think, kind of following quite a lot of other genres, there isn't another genre, there isn't another movement where the pioneers are as active as they are in drum and bass. Maybe in techno they still are, but then again, I mean, as you mentioned, there's it's that much older again, really. But there isn't, if you look at house music or anything like that, the forebearers, the front runners, the people who were lucky enough to be around at a time where you could fuse that alchemy and be around at the start of that, are still just as active, just as relevant, and just as respected by the audience.
I think what's really nice is, and I've noticed it over the last few years, is there's definitely a better mixture on big events, like say Hospital, for example. They went through a period when it was primarily their own eyes, which is fair enough because you look after your own first. But what I've noticed in with their events and things is a nice mixture now of obviously the up and coming guys, their own guys, and then they'll throw someone like myself in there, or Groove Rider, or Fabio, or Bookham, and a couple of us kind of thing, Brian G. And I love those events, man, because that's my bread and butter is in the clubs and probably a slightly older crowd, shall we say. But to play one of their events kind of thing is super fun, because to get to play, which is generally a slightly younger audience than what I'm normally used to playing to, is super fun. And to go there and do my thing and see it work and everyone has a good time is pleasing, man. And it's definitely how can I put it? People aren't tossed to the side. It's like, okay, well, you've had your time kind of thing, and now it's time for these new generation. It's a nice mixture. You know what I mean? I'm playing on lineups where, there's people 2 years into their career, and there's people in their 30 years into their career, and everything in between.
Yeah.
And because look, we're all doing the same thing at the end of the day. We're all pulling in the same direction. We're all on the same team. Yeah. That's how I look at it, man. Do you know what I mean?
And that's what excites me as well. That diversity in age. And this is something I said in an interview recently with Club Glow as well, is that when I first got into things in the mid-90s, seeing people older than me was like a beacon of hope, because I was already like, even in like late teens, was like, right, is this just like a passing phase? Do I have to get out of this by the time I'm 25 or something? And then you see these older people in their 30s, in their 40s, maybe even in their 50s, like, no, okay, right, you're still into this. This is something I can be part of and contribute to my entire life. And they were the gateway for me, the older DJs, the older ravers, those shady weirdos in the corner who had clearly spent a life in nightclubs and stuff, venues that I've spent my whole adult life in. And it's like, right, if you can do that, so can I. And having that, otherwise, if there's a finite time, then it would change the whole mindset and everything, really, of the culture, I think. Knowing that this is, if you're part of this and you love it and you're contributing towards it in any which way, whether that's as a raver, as a music maker, as a DJ, in any type of way, then this is yours. This is yours for as long as you want it to be, really.
Like I said, no rules.
Yeah.
No rules. The scene has no rules, man. It's no rules. There's no time limit. There's no age limit. There's no fucking rules, man. Like, I think if you have that, and it's such a liberating mindset to have. It's like sometimes I try to scale them back now. I don't do that many. I do like 2 or 3 a year. Like if I do an old school set, because I get so many offers to do them, but like I said, I'm more interested in, modern music, tomorrow's music, as opposed to old ones. So I scale them back now. I kind of said to my agent a year or two ago, I was like, I only want to do 2 or 3 of those a year, which makes them more fun when I do them. And the fun thing is, sometimes you'd expect, okay, you're doing an old school night, you're doing a 90s set, whatever it is, that it's just going to be people my age. And it really isn't. There's maybe, I don't know, half the people are around my age were out actually when those tunes were dropping. The other half weren't. Like I did an all day at E1 earlier in the summer. I swear, the majority of the people in there looked under 25 to me. It was crazy, and the scene all going bonkers to like old Dillinger tunes and Photech tunes and everything was like fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Because I think like that was really nice, man, because it was like, maybe they know these tunes and never heard them out, or I don't know, man. Sometimes when I do those, I don't really know what to expect. It was awesome, man. And contrary to that, like sometimes you play at an event and you expect it to be a whole, I don't know, nobody over the age of 21, and in the corner there's a bunch of guys, a bunch of people that are in and around my age, kind of thing. So, and I think Sun and Bass is like a great example of that. Sun and Bass is just like this complete mixture of people from all around the world, all ages, all everything, man. And I think that's dance music in general. It's generally like one of the most inclusive kind of things. Do you know what I mean? And it really kind of, I really get pissed when I see, thankfully it's very rare, but you see some DJs come out and they really fuck themselves by saying some really dumbass shit about, I don't know, gender or race or whatever. And I'm like, man, and you see how outed they get. And I'm not a big cancel person. I really don't like that kind of mentality when people just pile on somebody and trying to get them fucking out the door.
Yeah.
That being said, I think life in general, let alone, but dance music and drum and bass is so inclusive. Now, I think drum and bass could do better when it comes to the female aspect of things, and I think it is making really good moves in that direction, especially when you compare it to house and techno. Women are not represented enough. Now, I know the counter argument to that is like, well, there's just more guys DJing and more guys making music. Maybe that's true, but it's certainly underrepresented.
But even that in itself is a lack of access and a lack of feeling welcome, or a lack of visibility and things like that. It does feel like progress is being made. It can't happen quick enough.
It's definitely better, but there's definitely still a lot of room for improvement. Like I say, and especially if you compare it to like techno, for example. Techno is awash with female artists and female DJs headlining, you know what I mean, top stars. And it's like, man, drum and bass is not like that. So from the outside, I understand the criticism and it's valid. You know what I mean? Because if you're if you're working at Mixmag, for example, and you cover house and techno or whatever, and you look at drum and bass and you go, all I see is dudes. All I see is guys running fucking everything. Like, what the fuck is going on over there?
Yeah. Yeah. It's our responsibility then, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so.
It's never too late to change things and to keep those doors open.
Like I say, I think things are they're way better than what they were, but it still needs to be better than what it is, I think, personally.
Yeah. Definitely. And progress is being made. And it's not something that can happen overnight as well. If real progress is going to be made, then, and not just tokenism or anything like that, if real progress is going to be made, that's going to take some time. But I do feel, and people I speak to feel positive about the future in that way. And I wanted to go back to the aspect of no rules, because that for me is b-boy culture. Really, isn't it? And I've spoken to Goldie a lot about drum and bass being b-boy culture in a way, and that's what you came from originally, right the way back. Having spoken about the future, let's go into the past a bit. You are fundamentally from first generation hip hop culture, really, aren't you? That's what started all of this for you.
Yeah, I mean, 12 years old, saw Grandmaster Flash, saw a video excerpt on Grandmaster Flash on TV, scratching records, breakbeats, and I was like, what the fuck is this, man? And I'd heard a little bit of, I think the electro albums were just coming around that time, early 80s.
Oh, Street Sounds Electro.
Street Sounds Electro, yeah. And it just, I think it's, it appeals to certain people, and it just really, really appealed to me at the time. The whole thing, the music, the breakdancing, which I wasn't so good at, and the graffiti, the kind of thing, they all kind of spoke to me on a I wouldn't say spiritual, I don't know, man. It just had a calling to me, do you know what I mean? I was fascinated by it. I loved the music. I loved graph. I loved everything about that kind of, that culture. Yeah, I think for my generation, the most common route is like, yeah, you're a b-boy at some point. I think when you were a b-boy, you're pretty much a b-boy for the rest of your life, kind of thing. It never leaves you, kind of thing. And yeah, drum and bass is I think drum and bass is an extension of that. For me, anyway, it is.
Yeah.
The graffiti scene, the drum and bass scene, hip hop, it all has the same DNA for me, man. Do you know what I mean? It all comes from the same place. Now, absolutely. I know drum and bass is like this massive thing now, and you've got this whole commercial end of the scene, which is fantastic. I love it, man. There's nothing more that's good to me than seeing people like Chase and Status and whoever that are going out there and fucking smashing it on fucking, the Radio 1 main stage and everything. It just goes to show how far this music has, where it's come from, how far it's gone, its appeal, how it's good for everybody, that kind of thing. And it's the same with hip hop, and it's the same with graffiti and everything, man. Do you know what I mean? It comes from the street, and then it gets this like wider acceptance, and it's just, it's a really, really good thing, and it's definitely all rooted in the same thing for me.
Yeah, completely. Even with the aspects of having an MC, the kind of the rap aspect, the DJ aspect, the breakdancing aspect, and I think kind of drum and bass has that as well. In that you don't have to just be a DJ or just be a music maker to contribute. You could do all of these different things. I know people who make kind of streetwear and stuff, which is part of the culture. I'm a writer, and my interviewing is part of the culture. It's all of these things that kind of bring it together and make it a culture and not just a form of music in that way.
Yeah, it does become a way of life. It's, I think, for me in I don't know, probably in the mid to late 90s, it kind of really, I kind of resisted it for a while because I didn't want it to be like this 24/7 thing. I quite liked playing out at the weekends and then kind of switching off in the week and everything. And then you kind of realize that it does become like a way of life and everything. And it's a good way of life. Do you know what I mean? I think drum and bass has some pretty good moral codes to kind of to live by, kind of thing. It's is it perfect? No. Is any scene perfect? Of course it isn't. Is it trying to be better? 100%.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think there was a period when, at least from the outside, and when I say outside the UK, it seemed like a closed shop. Like, we didn't want to let people from overseas in. And that may have been the case for some labels for a little while. And I'm glad that the people outside the UK kicked down the doors and said, no, this isn't. Okay, yeah, we know it came from the UK, but it's not a UK thing. It's a worldwide thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it really hit home to me. When I first started going abroad, I was very, very, very lucky. And I started traveling in the mid-90s, going to these places for the first time. I went to Japan and America and Australia and New Zealand. So by the end of the 1990s, I was like, this is not a UK thing anymore. Do you know what I mean? When we were going down to New Zealand especially, and playing these like monstrous like 4, 5, 6 hour sets to this audience that were just ravenous to hear this kind of new music, man. It was freaking incredible, And so I was very, very lucky to get initiated into it being a global thing very early. And I know there were some people in the UK that were kind of a little bit resistant to it. And that was one of the, going back to the pendulum thing, that was one of the great things about that track, because I can remember when I gave that out to a few people, I got it in January and I gave it to a few people. And this was time when conference was still really big, Miami music conference. Yeah. And I gave it to about half a dozen people because I knew they'd batter it at conference. And I was pretty confident that it would blow up over there. And sometimes you just know that with sometimes you get it wrong. Sometimes you think you've got a real bomb, a real ball of fire, and it just doesn't catch on. You're like, huh. And then there's other times you got a track that you like. Obviously, you're putting it out. It's happened recently with me with Bungle with Cocooned. That one completely blindsided me because I thought it was a great track, but I thought it had a ceiling of, okay, heads will love it, and that's kind of it. I can remember some people hitting me up. DJs hit me up for the track, and I was like, well, I didn't think that was your kind of thing. Oh, yeah, cool, okay, of course. But then getting to Sun and Bass that year, and everybody played it. I was like, holy shit, man. It really, really blindsided me, and that's what I enjoy as well. It's like, you think I think I know quite a bit, but you still get surprises both ways. You know what I mean? You still get things where you think, I think this tune is going to be massive. And it did well, but it wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be. And like I say, counter to that, the Cocoon track really, really blindsided me. And I was like, man, I did not think that this would transcend that much and so many people would be into it.
It's proof there's something different and that something stands out will catch on, and it's going back to what we were saying earlier about kind of copying people or following the sounds of other people.
Sure.
When you do something that stands out, it really does kind of, and people get behind that because it pops, it sounds different, it's refreshing. I want to go back to the international kind of exposure because I understand why people were wary of other influences coming in to the mix, because it was something that wasn't happening anywhere else around the world in that type of way, had that culture. But we got to big up people like TB, really, haven't we? And Marky, I think, and Pendulum as well. But definitely, I mean, I've spoken to TB at great lengths, who he would make the pilgrimage over from Norway to, is it Norway or Sweden? I just really bad.
Norway.
No, it is Norway.
Sever Sweden.
That's it. Sorry, TV. So I'm not going to edit this. But I know that he would make the pilgrimage and come over to the end and stuff like that. And he, especially, and Marky, really had a massive fight on their hands, and they were the guys who blew down the doors this way.
Guys like that really had to go the extra mile. They had to put in the work. They really, really did. And it became a thing where I think if you weren't interested in people like that music, then you really kind of stuck out the wrong way, kind of thing. If you're running a label, I'm talking about, do you know what I mean? And I never quite understood it myself, but like I say, I was very fortunate because I was exposed to how the scene was going globally straight, when it was in its infancy of going there. Like I say, when I can remember when me and Goldie went to California, we did like a mini tour of California. We were the first people that ever went there to play drum and bass in 95, I think it was, whenever it was. You know what I mean? So when we went to Japan, we were the second people that went out there. Me, Randall, and Ed Rush. We were the second people that ever played drum and bass in Tokyo after Fabio and Groove Rider. So, you had all these kind of, I had all these kind of amazing experiences. So my viewpoint was distorted in a good way. I was like, look, man, this thing's fucking is global. And I remember saying to people, by the end of the 90s, we're going to have people from outside the UK making music as good as, if not better than what people are. And people are going, shut the fuck up, man. No fucking way. I was like, listen, man, it's inevitable. And that's a good thing. Well, don't even see that as a negative anyway. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of got it to some degree, but I also really didn't get it. But then again, I was in this unique position of going out to places and playing drum and bass to people sometimes for the first time and of them hearing it in a club. I mean, obviously they'd heard it and seeing the reaction, going, "It's game over, man."
You must have seen some mad reactions, some good, some bad, maybe as well. Going out to and I love hearing about these kind of gigs where not everything is like kind of to massive crowds and stuff like that. You must have played some really strange and surreal kind of sets as you're introducing this alien music to people.
I think, like I say, I really got back to. I was very fortunate that I saw Derek May do what he did to take it all the way back to that, and that's how I felt. And now I'm not comparing myself to Derek May at all, but the principle was the same. Okay, you're going to Tokyo, and it's the second time there's ever been a drum and bass event in Tokyo. So you realize it's important. You're not just doing another gig. And look, listen. Whenever I play, I always want it to be the best set I ever want it to be. But when you're doing that, like when me and Goldie I think we did 3 or 4 dates in California. I was aware this means something. Do you know what I mean? This isn't just a bunch of gigs and you're collecting some money and you go home and you carry on. At least to me, anyway. I was like, because I fucking love this music, man, and I always wanted to get it to the wider audience as possible. So for me, it was just fun. Do you know what I mean? And seeing people's reaction to it, I knew I would come home and just tell people, say, listen, man, this music's going to explode. And I say to people, I say, give it a few years and you're going to start hearing music as good as, if not better than what's being made here. It's going to be on a level. And it took a while. And then I think around the end of the 90s and the early 2000s, and then for me, it was like no difference. There were some people around that time that just didn't want to accept it, or they couldn't accept it, or you know what I mean? And if the demo came from an artist in Austria, they wouldn't treat it as seriously unless it would, or rather compared to a demo from somebody in South London, which to me was just fucking nonsense. But that's what people like TB and Marky had to overcome. And that's why I have utmost respect for them people. Do you know what I mean? Because there was an artificial hurdle in place for a while, kind of thing. And I'm glad it got obliterated, man. And like now, obviously, in 2022, no one gives a fucking shit, man. Like, who cares?
Yeah.
It's just like, and it's a real global scene. And then you see these like huge festivals that aren't even in the UK, man, like drum and bass festival, like fucking ginormous, man. It's great, man. And it's like some of the best artists now aren't from the UK, and that's a good thing, man. It's good. Yeah, we all know where it came from. This is our gift to the world. You know what I mean? And drum and bass is like, it's so unique. It's so special. It's like there hasn't been a music that completely formed out of nothing. Before drum and bass, there was no music. There was no dance music at 175 BPM. Do you know what I mean? You had Gabba, fast techno, 200 BPM. Yet I think the fastest techno around that time was, I don't know, 135. Some of it pushed 140. There was your drum and bass is a complete new music form that evolved out of these threads from the rave scene that didn't exist before. That's fucking incredible, man.
Yeah.
I can't think of many musical genres that just completely came, and a completely new form of music that now is kind of approaching 30 years old, give or take, and now is this mature global sound. I'm immensely proud to be my small part of it, and still to go out there and being able to play it to people. It's a beautiful thing, man. And it's the fact that it's global, and it's the people that make it, run it, that are involved in it, that are all surrounded it. It's a global thing. It's a fucking good thing, man.
Yeah. What I love is the fact that for those first few years, though, nobody really knew how long it was going to carry on for.
No.
It wasn't seen as a career. You were just like, right, okay, let's see how long this is going to go for. Let's see how far we can push this. And I find that fascinating. Anybody I speak to from that first generation, it's just like, right, that unknowing, which is probably why that hurdle was put in place, because it's like, well, this has been going 10 years. We don't know how long this is going to last. Like, anything that we do to change the imbalance could fuck things up here. So that could be one of the reasons why that kind of hurdle was in place in a way. But the fact that you didn't know, this wasn't a career option. You didn't sit down in school and say, right, I'm going to be a drum and bass DJ or anything like that, as I imagine like younger people would do now. It is a career option.
Yeah.
Even down to kind of what I do, people have got in touch saying, how do I get a job in drum and bass media?
Right.
I know all of those words. I've never heard them in that order. But, it's that kind of unknown, really, which is really exciting.
Even around the time when people were getting album deals, the first wave of album deals, okay, so you're talking like 95, 96. Even then, I think deep down that's why I didn't sign an album deal. But I got a couple of offers.
I was going to say, you must have had some offers.
Yeah, right? I had a couple of offers, a couple of proper offers that I turned down because one, I didn't need the pressure. I was going to say hassle. It's not a hassle. I just didn't need the commitment. You know what I mean? I made music. When I made music as a fun side project. My whole life mission has been, I always ever wanted to be a DJ. That's all I ever wanted to do. And I love that more than anything. And thought of having a contract and then having to make 12 tracks and then some fucking dude saying, no, we don't want this or put more vocal. I was like, oh, fuck that, man. I just didn't, none of that appealed to me whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? And to be honest with you, I might have said this to you before, but to be honest with you, I've never really enjoyed the process of making music. I enjoyed the finished product, but a lot of the time I hated being in the studio. I'm not a studio head. I'm not wired that way. Do you know what I mean? That's why a lot of my stuff is, the stuff that I made was quite simplistic because I just wanted to get in there and get the fuck out of there as quickly as possible. And that's the truth, man. Do you know what I mean? And so, I never even considered myself an artist at the time. I was just surrounded by assassins. Do you know what I mean? Like if you think of like when Metalheads first formed, when the Blue Note was kind of running, and around that time, I was going out and hanging out with Photek and Dillinger, and I'd go down to Bristol and hang out with Ronnie and Di and Crust and have all this fucking amazing music. So it was just like, some of that rubbed off on me, and I was just like, hey man, if I can make something that's kind of like on that kind of level, I know I'm in good company kind of thing. And that's all I ever tried to do, and some of those tracks then went on and did what they did, but I didn't have a fucking inkling of what I was really doing kind of thing. It was only kind of when I got to the end of the 90s and 2000s and I exhaled for a bit, because that period from like 95 to 99 was just fucking so fast. So much shit happened. There was so much going on. And then I remember like the year 2000 or something like that, and I tried to make music and I just couldn't write anything. It was just, and I was like, I knew then, I was like, I think I'm done with this shit, man. Because I always had the thing of like, if I can't make anything at least as good as what I've done, then kind of what's the point?
Why bother?
Why bother? Yeah. And I really didn't want to put out garbage. And I didn't have to. I was in a very lucky position. I didn't have to because it wasn't my primary source of income. I didn't consider myself an artist. I was a DJ that made some music. That's what it's on my bio. You know, I'm a DJ who's made some music.
Yeah.
That's why I am. You know what I mean? I'm not. Now, if people want to cite, I listen, when people cite some music that I made and it was important to them and this, that, and the other, I'll take those compliments. Thank you very much. It's great. I love it, man. But it was easy for me to walk away from it because it became. I never enjoyed the process of making music. So when it became really difficult, like as in like I couldn't write anything or I didn't like anything that I did, I was like, fuck this, I'm out. I just, you know what I mean? And it was easy for me to walk away. Now, has that itch kind of been there to want to kind of do it? Every now and then, it's kind of there. But I'm also very happy with what I'm doing. I love DJing. I love A&R. I love running a label. I love, I was going to say giving advice. That sounds like too pompous. I love helping people.
Helping people, yeah.
If someone asks me my opinion, if it means anything to anybody, I'm more than happy to get on the phone with somebody or have an email exchange with somebody or whatever and go back and forth and, you know, talk to them about what they're doing kind of musically and if they want my opinion on something, if it matters kind of thing, then yeah, man, I enjoy that more than anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know,
and seeing the legacy of the music as well, you know, and the influence of it, you know, kind of seeing how, you know, stuff like shadowboxing echoes to this day.
Yeah, it's a weird thing because, like I say, the 90s was, if I look back on it, it's all a bit of a blur. And like I said, I can remember getting to the early 2000s when I said to myself, I think I'm. At that time, I was like, I'm gonna have a break from even trying to make music because nothing's kind of happening. I'm getting frustrated in here, and it's not a fun place to be, just banging your head against the wall for 8 hours and not liking anything. Do you know what I mean? And that was the first time I kind of looked back on stuff that I'd made, and that's when I knew I was fucked because I listened to stuff like shadowboxing and I think that Swarm and other. There's half the stuff I don't really like, but other people like it, then that's awesome. I'd say half of the stuff I do like, and the stuff that I like, I'd listen to, and I was like, and I'd never really listened back to anything that I'd ever done. I was always just looking forward, and I was too busy anyway to have any time to look back. And I listened back to some of the tracks, and I was like, I can't make stuff like this anymore. You know what I mean? And some of the tracks I couldn't even, and I swear to God, this is the truth. I couldn't even remember making them. I was like, I can't even remember making this track. Like, I don't know if I was in some kind of altered state or what the fuck was going on. And I was like, man.
When a lot is happening, it's hard. You think you're going to remember stuff, but there's also adrenaline as well.
Yeah. And
when you're in that moment.
But I'm also very content in going to what you just said. It took a while, man. It took a while for me to accept. I don't take compliments very easily. If you ask Goldie, man, I'm much happier just to be in the background, do my thing, and then I get in and get out, do my thing, and that's it, man. I'm not a big publicity kind of person. I like being in the background kind of thing, and I don't take compliments very well.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That's just the way it is. So it took me a while to kind of accept the fact that some people, even to this day, like you say, shadowboxing is the one. Obviously, people say, "Man, fucking your shadowboxing make me want to fucking make music," or that was the track that got me into drum and bass, man. That took me a fucking while to get my head around that shit, man. To be able to digest that kind of information. Now I'm super comfortable. It's like, hey, man, why would you not want to have that on your resume? Do you know what I mean? And I'm more than comfortable. I'm happy with what I've done, as in making music. Do you know what I mean? I can look back on that run I had making music from whatever it was, 92 to 98, and say, hey, man, that's not a bad run. That's some pretty good shit in there. And if it means something to some people, fantastic, man. Do you know what I mean? And I'm always, like I say, that's why it was easy to walk away, because one thing I hate, and I'm not talking about drum and bass now, I'm talking in general. There's nothing worse, man, than having one of your favorite artists. They got a new album out, you go and get it, and you go, oh, that's awful. And you know what I mean?
They're squeezing it. You can feel that they've lost that kind of effort.
Yeah, man. It's like whoever it is, whether it be a hip hop artist or a rock band or whatever, man. Do you know what I mean? You got to know when to walk away. The analogy I use, when people say, every now and then people ask me, when are you going to get back in the studio? When are you going to make it? It's like, oh man, yeah, I'm going back in the studio, but not to make drum and bass. Like, and they say, oh, why not? I say, look, man, I'm big into, I love mixed martial arts. I love the UFC. I said, like, okay, I love the UFC. I love Royce Gracie, who's first UFC champion. I don't want to see him competing today with these guys. And I know it's difficult. There's a physical aspect to it, blah, 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 blah. But that's my analogy. It's like, look, man, I can't roll with these guys, man. I listen to tunes now and I'm like, holy fucking shit. And I joke to people like, DLR will send me a tune, or Perez, or, you know, any of these guys, man. You know what I mean? That some of my favorite guys, Halogenics, whoever. They'll send me something, man. And I'll joke to people, go, this is why I don't make drum and bass anymore. Listen to this fucking thing. This is like some fucking science fiction thing going on here, man. It's just like incredible. And it just makes me proud of where, you know, and that's what I love, man. That's why I come back to the DJing thing. And when I'm playing out, I'm proud to play this music, man. It's so fucking good, man.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know what I mean? My whole thing from back when I was a kid in school doing mixtapes, doing hip hop mixtapes, recording tunes off the radio with a twin cassette and literally making a mixtape, taking it into school. My whole thing is like, hey, man, listen to this. You have to fucking hear this tune. That's my life mission. You know what I mean? And I was going to say I'm lucky. I'm kind of lucky, but I also feel like I've worked hard to be in this position where I get sent all this amazing music, and then it's my job to put it in some kind of format and present it to people. And it's a fucking, it's a blessing, man. I love it, man. Do you know what I mean? Because I get sent such amazing music, man. These guys out there making music now, it's just on a level that's just never been, it's fucking unparalleled, man. And I'm excited, you know, I mean, who knows where it's going to be 2, 3, 4 years from now. Do you know what I mean? And you got these guys coming up, man. Guys have been making music for 2 years, just fucking smashing it out. Do you know what I mean? It's
But without people performing the role and contributing in the way that you do as a DJ, and I was thinking a lot about this on my journey up here. So it's like 3.5 hour journey. So it's exactly the same amount of length for one of your future shows. And, you know, you go through every record that you're sent, every tune that you're sent and everything like that. And the way that you present it, some of these tunes, they're fresh. They're completely fresh. You know, you're one of the first DJs to have them, but the way that you mix it all in, the way that you tell that story and that progression of the music is like you've already known that music all along anyway, and the way that you present it. So that role, otherwise, you know, these amazing nuggets of music are very hard to find for people without the selector's role, without somebody being that ambassador who's still right on the front of the future, even though you know that you don't, you know, production isn't what you want to contribute and that you're not, you know, you're past that point now. That thing has been ticked off the list. The way that you present it and articulate it to the world is just as important in order for that music to get out to the right people.
Hopefully, you know, that's, I mean, the thing, like, you know, during lockdown and everything, and then the live streams, and then they became, you know, that, and what they became, the live streams were weird, you know, that, I mean, look, that whole period was a weird period, as we know and we've spoken about before. But the silver lining for me was doing those live streams, and then they became what they became, and then having that time, you know, like you say, having that 3.5 hours to then, in that kind of second half of the show, of the live stream, to be able to play all this kind of weird and wonderful music that I get sent on a weekly basis. And, you know, that's why I've carried on doing them since we've gone back to work, since we've all gone back to work and everything, because it's important. For me, it's important that people get the opportunity to hear that stuff. And you may like it, you may not. I feel part of my job is to give people the opportunity to hear music they wouldn't normally get to hear. Now, obviously, as you know, sometimes you can't do that on a Saturday night. Like, if I'm booked 3 till 4 at a place in London, I know there's certain tunes. Now, I could play them, but that would be sometimes, you know, like I say, there's a fine line between saying, I'm just going to be fucking do this and no matter what, fuck you kind of thing. And that's when being, how can I put it? That's when your head can go up your ass and you can become too arrogant. Like I say, look, my job is to make people dance, man, at the end of the day, period. And then in between, however long I'm playing for, I see what I can get away with sometimes. And even then, within that, I know there's certain tunes that I just know won't work at a particular moment in time, or in a particular venue, or in a particular location, or in front of a particular crowd. Now, doing the live streams allows me to play that in a much more relaxed environment, and then talk about said tune, and, you know, say, hey man, I got sent this, and blah, 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 and there's a story behind it, and this, that, and the other. And then you do the track listing. And it's fun for me just to kind of like be able to put that out there, and just so people have an option to hear something different from the norm.
Yeah.
And by norm, I just, you know, I don't, this is not me throwing any shade at norm. Norm is good, man. We need norm as a middle point to say, okay, this stuff's over here and this stuff's over here. And just so I get sent this music, and my thing is like, people need to hear this. You know what I mean? And I've just always been built that way. And
it's the right context for it, isn't it? And I think also because otherwise a lot of the more experimental stuff will end up on playlists and things like that, where when you've got a human being playing it and maybe talking about it, introducing it and things, it gives it that human touch. Then people make that connection.
Yeah, I think so. And I just enjoy doing it. Like I said, I go back to it. I enjoy playing music to people, and especially music that I feel really passionate about, and even more so if it's kind of like off the beaten track or it's from an artist that people don't quite maybe know a lot about, kind of thing. You know what I mean? I used to listen to John Peel when I was a kid growing up.
Yeah. And
his show was like, especially because I'm outside of London, so I didn't get the pirate radio shows. So John Peel was kind of like my only one of my few kind of insights into hearing music that just wasn't on the Radio 1 playlist, kind of thing. Because especially back then, if you weren't in London, all you heard was what Radio 1 wanted you to hear, which was basically the top 40, and that was it. Kind of thing. It was very, very difficult. It's not like today where you got access to a million different ways to hear stuff, kind of thing. I had to go. My first experience of buying records was from the age of 13, 14, catching a train to London, to Birmingham, and spending all Saturday afternoon in a record store in Birmingham, and the guy would come in there, with import vans, records and everything, and you'd buy it. That's how you spend your Saturday afternoon, and that was how you got to hear music and for the first time, kind of thing. And I'm keen to spread the word. You know what I mean? I love just playing music to people, and not everyone's going to like it because that's just not how it works.
Yeah.
But if a handful of people like it, it's great. And what was really fun from when we were in lockdown and doing the live streams was artists whose music I played on the live streams were then communicating with each other and say, hey, I heard a tune that Scotty played on Saturday. It's really, really cool. And then those people were collaborating and making music together, and they'd never had any interaction before. You know what I mean? And then, so that was like, there were so many things that came out of that shitty period, kind of thing, that were positive, that were a good thing. It was
you built a community. You raised money for a whole load of charities. And I remember we did an interview in April, just as it had started, and we remarked on how strange it was. And you said right at the end, one day we will look back and go, how fucking mad was that? I don't think we're quite at that stage yet. We're still feeling the tail end of it.
I think things are still kind of fucked up a little bit. But
we're still, we are now able to look at these kind of highlights, these silver linings, and think, wow. And there are albums that are coming out every week. I'm interviewing somebody, and their album has really kind of piqued my interest. And it's the same old story in a way. It's lockdown. It's being taken out of the DJ merry-go-round. It's been made to think about something differently. It's having that time. All of these other extenuating factors. We will look back on that time as a fruitful time eventually, in one way or another.
Yeah, I think so. I think when we were all in the middle of it, there was obviously some really dark times, because at times we couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know what I mean? I can remember winter of 21 was...
Oh, that was hard.
Was really bleak. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because the numbers were fucking nuts. And I might think of the winter of 20 going into 21.
Yeah, it was the start of 2021.
Yeah. And there really seemed no end in sight to it. Do you know what I mean?
We'd been teased. We'd kind of come out of it a little bit. There were the sit-down raves, but there were glimmers of hope and things, and then bang.
I think
it was dark.
Do you know the weird thing is we've only been like back to work, back to normal. July 21 we opened up, right? So it's only been a year. That seems about 5 years ago.
It does, doesn't it?
Honest to God, that seems about 5 years ago. It's so strange. Because it's such a weird moment in human history. Do you know what I mean? The thing is when I started doing those live streams, I knew straight away, and I knew I know myself, and I had my dark times in my life during the end of the 2000s, and thankfully that's a long time ago. But I know routine is good for me. Do you know what I mean? I need some kind of routine, otherwise things could potentially spiral out of control. I don't think they would, because I'm far removed from where I was as a person and as a mindset. But still, things were so scary at the start, when everything started shutting down and nobody knew what the fuck was going on. was fucking scary. I think people forget, just like, March, April, May 2020 was fucking scary, man, because nobody knew what the fuck was going on, man. And I knew straight away, I was like, I need to have some routine. What's the thing I like doing most? Playing music. Okay, right. I went onto YouTube, watched, I think, 2 or 3 videos of like, I knew nothing about live streaming. I didn't know anything. Do you know what I mean? And I watched a few videos, kind of did a rough setup at home. I mean, the first couple of live streams was so primitive, but it worked. And I was like, okay, fuck it, man. Let's just. And I honestly thought, I was like, okay, maybe 3 people might tune in at some point, but I didn't really give a shit. I was like, I just want to go through my promos on a Thursday, put my playlist together in Record Box on a Friday, and then on Saturday play some music, because that to me was what I would normally do. That to me is a normal kind of week. What they went on, I mean, look, none of us thought that they would frigging go on for a year and a half kind of thing. I think that was a scary thing as well, because I remember thinking, okay, we're going to be shut down for like a month or 2, and hopefully we'll be back out for the summer.
Everyone was like, and then suddenly it was like, right, Q4, the last part of 2020, that's going to be all.
And then I can remember thinking in May 2020, we've lost the summer. And I remember getting to the summer and thinking, this year's gone. And then, but I don't think anybody predicted that we'd lose the whole of 2021 either. I mean, that's where it was fucking. I mean, look, I'm not telling anybody everything. That was the thing as well that helped me get through it on a personal level, was everyone was going through this fucking shit. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? And the live streams was, I have to be honest, man, it was just for me. I was just like, I need to have a routine here. I need to do my normal thing and play some music. And then within like a month,
you had hundreds.
Yeah, 250, 300 on the regular kind of thing. And on peak ones, like 500 people listening, and a lot of people listening back on the playback kind of thing. And it just morphed into this, like you say, like this little community thing where, and it was the same thing. I mean, and that's the beautiful thing. Like someone come up to me at the weekend and said, like, just come up to me and said, thank you for doing the live streams, man. It kind of really helped me and my partner get through. And I always say to people, it's a 2-way street. You know what I mean? It's a 2-way thing. As much as it helped you, and I'm really happy that it did, it fucking helped me as well, man, because I needed that routine kind of thing. And then, yeah, what it went on to become was way beyond anything I could comprehend, kind of thing. And once I figured out how to kind of integrate all the chat rooms and then put it on the screen and blah blah blah, and yeah, like you say, you had this little community of people, and there was like a regular 150 people that tuned in every fucking single week. Yeah, and we had some fucking really fun times, man. Some really.
I know people who've made friendships through it. Made lifelong friendships.
Yeah, there was like some really weird and wonderful time. I turned 50 during lockdown. Did this old school special on literally on my birthday. My birthday fell on the Saturday. I think played for 6 hours. By the end of it, I couldn't speak. I was so fucked. But it was fun, and like I say. And then when I meet people, and I always encourage people. I always said to people, if you're ever out and about when we're all through this, please come up and say hello. If I can put a face to the name, that'd be awesome. And one of the most fun things of the last 12 months is obviously going back to work, obviously being able to do what we all love, being around people, earn a living, honestly earn a living. One of the other special things is bumping into people that come up to me. And then when I went to America in March for a couple of weeks, and there were people out there coming up and saying, oh, thank you so much for the lockdown, the streams through the lockdowns, when they help us get through it. And that was the thing. It's like, it was this little security blanket in the middle of all the fucking madness that shit was going on. Do you know what I mean? And that I could look forward to those 3 hours on the Saturday and think, okay, just get through the next couple of days. You got Saturday. And then to your point, what you were talking about earlier, also, it was like, okay, well, you've also got this opportunity here where we're not in a club. There isn't a dance floor. So now you can just play all this other stuff that you get sent. And then the weird thing was, well, maybe not weird, maybe it kind of makes sense, was I got sent more music during the lockdown than I normally would get. And I get sent a lot of music anyway, because once the thing kind of took off and it became on the regular thing and it had an audience, and I was doing track listings, because that was the thing as well, because obviously I run a label, I was thinking, the A&R part of me was like, the label manager of me was saying, how the fuck are people going to hear music? How are people going to buy music? How are people going to sell music if there's no way to fucking hear it?
Yeah.
So I was gladly doing track listings, and then obviously people that were, running labels thinking the same thing. Okay, who's doing live stream? Marky, myself, John. You need to get it to those people because there's no fucking where else to hear it, kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So ironically, during this period, I was getting sent more music and probably more upfront music than ever before because there was just nowhere else to hear it, kind of thing. So it got me through it, and it got the fact that it got other people through it as well. And like you're saying, then there was this side thing of because it was generating, and not vast amounts of money, but enough money for me to fucking do what I needed to do. And I was like, okay, I don't need all this money. There are other people that fucking need money. Do you know what I mean? And first of all, we kind of gave some money to the main charities. And I was like, no. And then I think my wife, Sarah, she said to me, let's look at some local charity. Because obviously at that time as well, it's like what's going on now with this fucking cost of living shit. Food bank donations are down. And around that time, obviously, donations to charity around that time, especially smaller local charities, were down because people were worried because obviously they couldn't go to work and blah, 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 blah. So we found like about half a dozen local charities in and around Coventry that, helped people in, all kinds of different ways. And we just donated to them every week, man, as long as we could, man, kind of thing, until the government, like the, what do they call them?
Oh, the handouts.
Until they ran out, kind of thing. And then I think I got up to about show 50 or something, and then I kind of said, like, look, man, the government kind of money's run out, got to kind of stop donating to charities from now on. And people, I was like, hey man,
people understood that.
Yeah, 100%. You know what I mean? But just that little bit of extra income that I kind of roughly knew come from a Saturday night was just kind of like, help through it, man. And the fact that we could help out some other people, some other local charities and everything it was a lovely bonus, man, on the side of it all. Do you know what I mean? But that wasn't my intention from the get-go. The get-go was just from a selfish point of view, was just like
you say, man, having a routine.
Yeah, I just need to have some fucking routine. Like, and then what it morphed into was fucking incredible. It was a beautiful thing, man. It really was. It was sad. Like I say, when I did the last one, it was a sad thing. And I kind of said, like, I will not stop doing these. And I think since then I've done like about 6 or 7. I do them about once every couple of months. And we all kind of, have a weekend off. I'm like, okay, and I'll put it up about 3 weeks in advance, and like, the same old heads all kind of roughly show up, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's fun. Making it a special occasion, and really kind of utilising the platform that we'd all kind of created and that you'd created during that time. So, I mean, you knew yourself and you knew your brain and your health, your mental health well enough to identify that you needed to do something like that to get yourself out of it, because you've been through a really hellish time in the 2000s. Do you think if you hadn't gone through that process of self-development and understanding yourself, where do you think you would have been with the lockdown then? If you didn't really kind of know how to control your mental health in that type of...
I'm not sure. That's a good question. That's a really good question. I'm really not sure. I'd like to think I would have stumbled into it at some point anyway, because like I said, I love playing music, you know what I mean? And I would have missed it too much I couldn't... There's no way I could have sat on my hands for 6 months and not done something, you know what I mean? I would have gone fucking insane. I would have gone nuts. I just wouldn't have been able to do it. So I would like to think I would have probably stumbled into it at some point, but it wouldn't have been off the bat. Definitely not. Like I said to you, I knew, I kind of saw what was coming. And I always like to my default mentality is like, I always plan for the worst case scenario kind of thing. It's just the way I'm wired. Because then I think if it is the worst case scenario, I like to think that then I'm prepared. If it isn't, then bonus kind of thing. Yeah. But I looked at this thing that was coming, like, we're like, most of us were, we've seen the reports that were coming out of Italy and everything in January, February, I think it was, and thinking, holy fucking shit, if that comes here, we're fucked.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? And as we all know, government was slow to get on top of it, and it all went to fucking shit really quickly. So I just thought, like I just mentioned earlier, I thought to myself, I need to have a routine. What's the best routine I can have? What do I enjoy doing most? Playing music. Okay, then let's just figure this thing out. I kind of knew about live streaming, like I was aware of it, but I didn't know anything about it on a technical point of view or anything kind of thing. One of the fun things about doing that was I got so nervous before doing live streams. Like, I never get nervous when I'm DJing.
Wow.
Because even from back in the day, I think because I DJ'd at home, I got my first pair of turntables when I was 14, and I practiced a lot. I practiced all the time. So when I played out, the first times I played out, yeah, a little bit nervous, but I wouldn't say I was ever nervous. It was like a nervous energy, maybe. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a difference there, isn't there?
But the live streams, man, I'd be like, the 5 minutes before we go live to air, even now, it's because, especially, it's kind of worse now because I do it once every roughly 2 months. So I'm not into the, I set it up and I'm like, oh, I've forgotten something. Is that supposed to go in there? And blah, blah, blah. And you're thinking, is everything right? So you'd have this little real nerves sometimes, especially in the start of it. I'd get really nervous because it was just so foreign to start from nothing, because I'm so used to going on after somebody.
Yeah.
You walk into a club or you get wherever you're playing. I'm not.
And you can see the people as well. You can actually see the people when it's online. You don't know how many people are out there.
It's just it was the 5 minutes. It's like, okay, I set everything up. I'd usually set everything up half an hour before I was going to do the stream, and you kind of test it as best you can. You think, yeah, everything seems right, and then I'd go into the room where everything was set up about 5 minutes before I was due to start. And then those 5 minutes were the worst because you're just standing there and there's nothing. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, oh my God, man. It's like, but what's the second track in? You're okay. You're good. All right, we're off. Good. But it was really weird, man. It's such a weird feeling because it was so foreign. Do you know what I mean? It's like, okay, you're doing what you normally do, but it's in this weird environment. And then obviously the backdrop of it is this whole fucking crazy thing that's going on in the world, kind of thing, that we're all trying to forget as quickly as possible, kind of thing. And I had a rule, and I banned. The great thing was Restream was a platform I used to merge all the audiences together into one place, and you can ban words from the chat room. And I always had a rule which was like, we don't talk about the outside world in here. We don't talk about COVID. We don't talk about this. Sometimes I would break my own rule, and somebody would be like, yeah, fucking hell, we need to get back to work. We need to get back out there. But generally, this is our kind of escape from, the Monday to Friday of not knowing what the fucking hell's going on or anything, kind of thing. Let's just enjoy some music and have some fun and have a couple of laughs and have a couple of drinks. I drank, I'd have a 4-pack of Guinness, and that would be my little unwind for the weekend. And that was kind of, because I don't drink when I DJ, I don't drink when I'm out. So even that was kind of weird and different.
Yeah.
Like a whole different thing.
But that escapism is the one consistency, really, and the one thing that kind of made, it was empowering, or a reminder of how enduring dance music is, that we don't need to be in a rave, we don't need to be on a dance floor, we don't need to be in a club. This music still has power to take us somewhere and bring us together, regardless of any challenges or circumstances put in our way.
Music is the greatest escape of all. It really is. It's the one true universal language where, you don't need to, you can communicate with people with music that...
you can't speak a word of their language, but you play a tune.
Don't need to speak a word of language. Like, I remember going to... I was lucky enough to go to China a few years ago, about 6 years ago, maybe, and always wanted to go there. And I got the opportunity, I think it was like 2015, I think. And some people can speak English, not many. Doesn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't matter. Like, music is the one true universal language. And and they're also the one true, or one of the best ways rather, of escapism. And that's why the music that I play, I always say I try to play music on 2 levels. I'm into music on 2 levels. One, you need the physical aspect. Obviously, you're playing dance music. You need the physical aspect of it. Not every tune I play, because that's impossible. But I also try to play some tunes that are for, hopefully will make you think, hopefully make you visualize something, think about something. Do you know what I mean? That to me is the best merge of music, man. Music, listen, I want to dance. If I go out and listen to a techno or hip hop DJ or whatever, man. Hip hop not so much. Hip hop is more of a physical thing. But I think drum and bass, house to a degree, more deep house, I guess. Techno, there's a mental, an escapism there that can be locked into, I find anyway. Some of the DJs I like to listen to some of my favorite DJs, Sasha and Digweed. I guess, I don't know what you class them as, more progressive house.
Yeah.
No, they just got their own sound. Those are the people I listen to, and they're who I get inspired by from on a DJ level. there's obviously a lot of D&B guys I really, really like. I don't really listen to drum and bass when I'm away from the scene, when I'm not working, kind of thing. If I'm in, if I'm going to listen to somewhere, if I'm traveling, if I'm on a train, on a plane, wherever, generally techno, deep house, and I draw a lot of inspiration. I think, I've kind of joked, I'm a techno DJ trapped in the D&B scene, and that's how I kind of put my music together, kind of thing. I DJ more like those kind of guys than a traditional drum and bass DJ. I think if there is a defined drum and bass DJ style, I don't know. I guess
because we have got our own kind of techniques like double drops and things like that, and you definitely have more of a kind of techno mindset in that type of way, really. Well, I was going to ask, like, with the techno thing, did you have any interactions? Because I know, like, Reinforced, like Mark and Dago, they did have interactions and collaborate with like Mad Mike and stuff like that, and there was a dialogue between London and Detroit. Were you involved in any of those collaborations or discussions, or
no? But I have a lot of friends in the techno scene that I've got to know over the years. I mean, just last weekend I was very.
You played with Ben Sims.
I did, yeah. He invited me to play on his machine night at Field Maneuvers, which was a big honor. I've never met Ben. I think we met years ago at Atomic Jam in Birmingham, just briefly. But we kind of became, as his wife said, quite funny, oh, here's your Twitter buddy. That's one of the beautiful things about social media and the internet nowadays is you can have, you can get to know people without actually ever meeting them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I think most people know how much of a fan of techno I am. It's not a secret, kind of thing. And he invited me to play, man, and it was I had that nervous energy before I played, and he was playing it after me. So it's kind of like, you got to be right. It's got to be, it's got to be good. But
so did that take you back to like really early days of warming up for people and stuff like that, and put you in like a kind of a mindset that you haven't been in for quite some time?
Well, I was outside my comfort zone for one. So I think that's a good thing for DJs to do. I always say it, man. It's good if you get the opportunity to, there's two things if you're a drum and bass DJ. If you get the opportunity to play to a non-D&B crowd, jump at it. It's really good fun. And then if you are into a different kind of music, if you're into 140 or hip hop, and you are lucky enough to get invited to play at, that kind of event, do it, man. It's such a thrill. I was so looking forward to this set, and like I say, I was a little bit nervous energy. Definitely bordering on slight nervous, because I was thinking, and because I saw the running order, I was like, oh my god, Ben's on after me. Shit, it's got to be right.
Who was on before you as well? Was it someone?
It was all proper heads.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it was like, better fucking deliver. And then I came off, and Tasha, who I know, she spins some jungle sets and everything. There is quite a crossover there. You know what I mean? You see there's a lot of techno DJs that are secret jungle
like
heads.
Nastier as well.
Yeah. I saw her post this week that she's posted her September dates, and she's at Sun and Bass, and she said highlight of the year.
Yeah,
that's what she put. You know what I mean? And there's a lot. Look, it all comes from the same place. As go back to what I was saying earlier. All these kind of forms of music, man. Yes, they're different styles and they're different tempos, but its core element, like the DNA is the same. So it's easy to communicate. When I cross paths with some guys I've known for a long time, and sometimes I'll just hit them up randomly and say, hey man, I'm a big fan of your music. And then they'll say, hey, I loved your stuff I grew up on your stuff in the 90s and blah, blah, blah. So it all comes from the same place. Do you know what I mean? We're all doing the same thing, just sometimes at different tempos. And,
even down to newsreaders, even down to like news journalists, like that. I wish I could remember his name, but there was a newsreader like who said to you, that it's a really famous guy.
Yeah. Oh, it's the I know who you mean, from Outside Source.
Yeah.
Why can't I think of his name?
It's completely. You had some back and forth. And he was listing all of your tunes and things like that.
That's what I'm saying. And the thing that you forget is like, okay, I'm 51 now, and these people that you see on TV reading the news, whatever they're doing, they were 20 once, they were 20 at some point, and a lot of them were going out to the clubs and everything. And it's like, I was going to say it's weird. It's not weird. It's just, it's normal. Why wouldn't that happen? It's just kind of like, yeah, it's a bit, oh my God, that's that good dude that everyone, and the thing that made that special was he's one of like the people that a lot of people respect. Like they really, really respect what he does because he calls it pretty straight.
Yeah.
As straight as you really, you know. Why can't I think of his name? That's really annoying. That's it, Ross Atkins. Big up Ross. Yeah. What was interesting about that interaction was how many people kind of jumped on it and were going, no way, blah, 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 blah. And then he was buzzing off the fact that people were buzzing off the fact that he was into D&B and knew his shit. It was wicked. It was, yeah, that was a very, very heartwarming thing. Yeah. You know what I mean? And yeah, we DM'd each other a few times. It was a little bit surreal, but you know, game knows game.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a discipline, really. I think, you know, whether that's drum and bass or whether that's news, I think, yeah, when you can recognise that in people, really, can't you? And it's interesting, you know, we've kind of talked about social media a few times and Ben Sims being your Twitter buddy and your dialogue there with Ross. And there was something that I almost thought about starting this podcast with it, but there was something that you did for me. And it was about this time last year. I was in a really negative headspace. We'd actually come out of the lockdowns, but my mental health wasn't good. And I posted something, and you popped up on my DMs and said, if you ever want to talk or anything like that. And you didn't need to or anything like that. But yeah, thank you for doing that. You know, you could obviously identify something in what I was talking about. And I was at my wit's end. I was completely inside out due to a couple of situations. I don't normally get public or anything like that. But you identified that and were happy to step forward, you know, even in your busy life or whatever. We don't, you know, we're not mates. We don't meet up socially. We've spoken a lot of times. We're in the same field and have a lot of respect for each other. But yeah, thank you for doing that.
Well, you're welcome. I think once I did that interview with you where I kind of went public about everything that I kind of went through at the end of the 2000s, and it was kind of like a weight off my shoulders rather. And I got a lot of really interesting feedback from that, a lot of positive feedback. And then a lot of people reached out to me that were having their own issues and problems. I'm not a fucking social worker or anything like that. But what I am is someone that's been through a bunch of shit, got through it, kind of dealt with it, and now I'm far enough removed from it where I can objectively kind of look at things and I don't know if I can help. Well, yeah, I think I can help people. Fuck it. And I've spoken to people that I know. I've spoken to people that I've never met in my life. I'm like, you don't have to be fucking Einstein to work out that if someone's saying something publicly on social media, then that's a moment. Do you know what I mean? And it's no skin off my nose to say, hey man, if you ever want to give me a call about whatever, I might not be able to fucking say anything that fucking means anything, but I might be able to, and it's not a drama. And
I think it's knowing sometimes, especially, you know, as self-employed people, and we all are in this industry as creative individuals, and we haven't got, you know, you might have the support of your family and stuff like that, but just knowing that there are other people who will understand.
I think one of the worst things, having been there, at least from my experience, one of the worst things is feeling that you're alone, and knowing that you're not alone. Like you say, you don't have to pick the phone up to anybody, but just knowing that you're not alone is a big thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And just knowing that the option is there to talk to somebody if you want to, if you feel the need to, is a big fucking thing. Because I know when I went through my shit, I know I didn't realize it at the time, but I thought, you know, I'm fucking in this on my own and I can't get out of it. And that's when things can get really out of hand. When you're in that mindset and you feel like you can't speak to somebody, or there's nobody to speak to, one of the two, it's a fucked up place to be, man, and that's when things can get really fucking ugly.
Even when you've got a loving partner.
100%.
I read through the interview, so just for anybody who's listening who is unaware of this interview, you actually got in touch with me after Anthony Bourdain.
Yeah, that's right.
Sadly took his life, and you're like, look, I can't. If I can have a positive influence on just one person, then I need to do this, and it's not going to be easy. And I think there were 2 occasions where we had to reschedule because you weren't sure about doing it. It was a huge thing for you to do, to come out and, speak about it publicly. You'd never done that before, had you?
No, I hadn't. Obviously, I'd spoken to it privately with some people, but not many people knew. Even the people that I knew really well didn't know. I mean, they knew I'd gone through some shit, because how could you not know? Because things were kind of fucked up. I wasn't turning up to gigs and things and missing shows and fucking just generally being an asshole. But the way that was received, I don't know, just some people that reached out, some people that just hit me up, people that I've known for a long time and they had things to say, was fucking amazing, man. And it was like I say, I felt far enough removed from it where I could talk about it and it didn't hurt anymore. Do you know what I mean? That was the thing. But when was that interview? Like
2019 or 18.
Yeah. So I mean, we're talking almost 10 years after the fact. That's how long it took for me that I felt comfortable being able to talk about it. Now, and I think it's easier anyway, because mental health, especially after what everyone's been through a fucking pandemic and everything, it's much easier to speak about. You very rarely get people now going, "Oh, fucking man up, man," or any of that bollocks, man. And they get shut down super quick, man. But I think even some of the most hardcore people struggled during the lockdown, because why would you not? It was fucking difficult, man. Do you know what I mean? And maybe some of those people that had never experienced any form of feeling down and not knowing why, we're going, fuck, man, I kind of understand, and some people just have that when everything's fucking bright and shiny and everything, and that's when it's really fucking difficult.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When everything's going fucking super well and you're thinking, why am I fucking feeling...
Yeah.
Anyway.
I should be feeling grateful. And then you get that additional kind of feeling of guilt that you're not appreciating everything.
Exactly.
And it just compounds on top of compounds. And I think it's harder when, to the outside world, it looks like you've got a dream job. And, ostensibly you're doing something that you love and that you're not, you haven't had to subscribe to the rat race because of circumstances.
The thing is, it can affect anyone.
Yeah.
No matter who you are, what you're doing, whether you're up, whether you're down, whatever. Do you know what I mean? And I'm glad where we are today in 2022 and the last few years, there's no, at least from where I see, there's no stigma attached to it anymore.
Definitely.
And there's no stigma, no one's looked down upon rather, for speaking out. Speaking out is a fucking good thing, man. It really fucking is. And it's some people are still committing suicide. Obviously, some people still don't feel the courage or feel comfortable enough to speak out. Frost did a really good thing when we did that, when he organised that podcast that he did during lockdown, and Friction and Mampy Swift spoke on it as well and we all spoke about mental health and struggles. Swift, Friction, I never knew they had any problems whatsoever. Do you know what I mean? Why would I know? Kind of thing. And that the reaction we got when we did that podcast was really, really good. And because I think it's important that there's no stigma attached to it whatsoever. And it's in a much better place, like infinitely better place than what it was a few years ago, and certainly what it was 10 years ago and 20 years ago and so on and so forth. Kind of thing. And the more people feel comfortable speaking about it, the less people will commit suicide and do harm to themselves. Do you know what I mean? Do harm to others. And that's a fucking good thing, man, because we've all been through the fucking shit. And we're going through it now with this fucking cost of living shit.
I was going to say, and I think it's really important that we still keep that kind of supportive nature and carry on being that open, because times are still really challenging. The more we're under the governments that we are across the world as well. I speak to, we're in a very lucky position where we speak to people all across Europe, America and the Far East. And we're in very similar situations in many different territories. And I think, the more we stick together, that is the bright side of the future, really, isn't it? And that's, when we spoke on the phone ahead of doing this, it would be so easy for us to rant about the Tories for 2 hours. And we haven't. We've managed to avoid, we've touched on it, we've skirted around it. But when we talk about the future, and we kind of wrapping up now, people are the future, and that's still bright. Like, you know, when as long as people basically give you hope, don't they?
100%. Politics is politics, you know, and I think. I mean, how old are you now?
I'm 44 next month.
Okay.
So by the time this comes out, I'll be halfway to 88.
There
I'll
you
be
go.
exactly halfway through where I want to be in life. Right?
There you go. So, you know, you've been around enough. You've seen enough. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I lived through Thatcher's fucking Britain, and I'm old enough to remember the winter of discontent, 77, 78, and all that fucked up shit. It's the same script over and over again, unfortunately, and without going too much into it, because like you say, you could talk another 2 hours about the Tory party and politics and all of it, is my faith is in people. Do you know what I mean? It really is. And I all through the lockdown, there were some incredible people doing incredible things, and there was some fucked up shit that went on. And I think history, when it looks back on that period and this period that we're going through at the moment, not look too kindly on some people. Do you know what I mean? Because my thing is this with the lockdown and everything is I'm prepared to give pretty much everybody a pass, even for the first 12 months, certainly for the first 9 months. First 12 months, because that, like I said, what I alluded to earlier, that first 6 months of the pandemic was fucking scary, man. No one knew what the fuck was going on. The 6 to 12 month period, there were decisions made that shouldn't have been made and things, but with hindsight. I know people questioned it at the time, but I'm prepared, because I wouldn't listen. I'm no fan of fucking Boris Johnson. I'm no fan of this government, but I would not like to have been in power when all that shit was going down and having to make certain decisions. It was fucking difficult, man. Yeah. It was loads of crazy stuff was going on.
No one would have got it perfect. No one would have made all the right decisions.
No, 100%. That's what I'm saying. I'm prepared to give anyone a pass for the first 12 months.
I think that's quite generous, 12 months.
Well,
but you're right.
Like I say, I'm a charitable person. but you know, things that happened, say from the spring of 2021 onwards, some fucked up shit went down, man. People got rich, you know, real shitty decisions were made, and they weren't looking out for the people, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Some real fucked up shit was fucking going on. And, you know, I saw him doing his goodbye speech yesterday or the day before, whenever it was. And I was like, you're fucking lucky you're not in handcuffs, mate. You know, the fucking some of the shit you pulled. You know what I mean? And, you know, I was speaking to this about my wife, man. Like I say, I'm no fan of this dude. But he fucked up so much. To me, it's incredible, because the reason he's leaving is all himself. He self-sabotaged his own premiership. Like, what a fucking idiot. Like, you won the general election by a massive amount. You had this fucking mandate to fucking get through what you wanted to get through. Things that I don't agree with, but, you know, the people fucking voted. What can you know, that's democracy. And this fucking idiot, everything he did was self-inflicted. Like, what a moron.
And then the lies on top of it.
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
the constant denial.
And I know all politicians lie, but man, this guy was just the liar of all liars. But, you know, okay, we've got a new prime minister. Is it going to be any different? Probably not.
No.
My thing is this, man. I look out, obviously, for my family. I'm into my music. I have faith in the general public and in people. I love this scene. I love the people in it. I think drum and bass is, like, I'm not saying it's the best scene in the world. It's one of the best scenes in the world. It's full of great people.
As long as we've got that and the people that it brings, and it aligns kindred spirits, doesn't it? The
future is fucking really, really bright, man. Like, this scene now is 30 years old, and I think it's just getting its groove on. Like, it's just about to fucking go into the next gear kind of thing. That to me is, like, so fucking exciting, man. Like, if I can do this, man, you know what? I was at E1 a couple of weeks ago, did a back-to-back with Brian G. Shout out to Brian. That was fucking fun. Never done a back-to-back with him before.
Alchemy, wasn't it?
Alchemy.
Yeah.
Never done a back-to-back with Brian before, and all this time. And we've been...
Never?
Never.
God.
Never, yeah. So that was super fun. And I said to him, I goes, you know what, Brian? We're kind of similar, man. We know we're kind of in the background. We just keep our heads down. We do our thing. We've always been underground. Never seek the bright lights or the, you know, anything. We just keep our head down and just do our thing, man. You know what I mean? Got our ear to the ground. I know he's always up front, man. Do you know what I mean? Always breaking shit, breaking new music, breaking new artists. So it was fucking fun. And we come off, man. We did an hour and a half. I'm like, man, need another hour. We're just going to get going. But then I went in the main room. Josh Shacker was in there.
Yeah.
Josh Shacker in the main room all night. Dude's 72. I looked at him. I was like, if I can do this for another 20 years, man, I'm going to be so fucking happy.
Yeah.
Because, like I said to you, I think drum and bass, man, like right now, the last 5 years, it's the best it's ever been. It's so good, man. Like I will put this music up against anything. It's so fucking good. And it's only going to get better. And you see all these younger, like I say, I spoke about earlier, these younger guys coming through. Assassins. Fucking assassins, man. 2 years making music, man. Making smashing, fucking making terrifying fucking tunes. I'm like, holy shit, man. Imagine when this guy's fucking, been doing this for fucking 5-10 years, how good he's going to be. He's doing this stuff right now. So I'm 51, man. I'm 51 going on 21.
Yes.
And I want to give me another 20 years. Give me another 20 years, man, and I'm good. Like I say, I looked at Shaka, man. We went into the main room. It's like, man, the whole fucking thing was in there. It was bouncing in there. I was like, and dudes, someone said to me, goes, you know how old he is? I knew, obviously, he's old, not old like in a negative way, like an old gentleman.
A veteran.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, he's 72, man. He's there bouncing, man. I was like, fuck, man. That's where I want to be. That's where I want to be when I'm fucking, give me another 20 years, man. I'm good.
Amazing. You've given me goosebumps, man. I think that's a perfect place to bring it all together. Thank you so much for your time, Scotty. Thanks. This could carry on for ages, but it's been a beautiful conversation, and thanks to everybody who's listened to us.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Thank you. Take care.
Take care.
Cheers.
One more thing.
One more thing.